Hi, Deanna Rose. Welcome to Profit Boss Radio.
Hi, Hilary. Thank you so much for having me. What an honor. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, as you know, my core content is about money and wealth building. But of course, as they say, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. So let's talk to those members of my audience who might be experiencing, like, sometimes to achieve in a particular area of life, it can seem like the right thing to do to let other things slide, let balance go to the wayside. And I think people leverage their health more than anything. I mean, when we're in our 20s, we pull all-nighters when we're studying for college. I think sleep is the first thing to go. And then of course you start with the drinking and, maybe some people are medicating. I mean, and then of course those impacts come calling. So would you tell us tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are, why this is your calling and what you do best?
Yeah, for sure. So long story short, I actually wanted to really be a neurosurgeon when I was younger. And as crazy as this sounds, is I love cutting things open. And so my thing, and I love the brain, of course, putting the two together, perfect combination. And my dream was shattered when I stepped into my first year physics class when I was in undergrad. I couldn't understand a thing that they were talking about. So I said, well, there goes my dream. But growing up, I had so many people around me, myself included, have gone through mental health issues. I've gone through depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts. So a lot of those things have been always circling around me. And so I went into mental health and I worked for the Canadian, one of the provinces in Canada for their mental health institution, working with addicts, working with, severe mental health issues, working with murderers. So a lot of those, I guess, people that you would consider, people that no one really wanted to deal with, unfortunately. But it was something that I was so passionate about. But what I realized was that people were just treating that one thing. They were popping pills. They were given pills, and there was not a lot of compassion and not a lot of, holistic healing going on. So it was literally just talk therapy and just a little bit of, antipsychotics, and that was it. And the nutrition portion was not there. Exercise was not there. The other portions of things, just it was very one-dimensional. So from there, I realized, in order for us to heal the mind, we need to heal the body at the same time. So I went into naturopathic medicine and hoping that, I was going to get into mental health through the naturopathic medicine channel. And then what I realized was, I was like, man, I've been a high achiever all my life. I've been burning out since I was in my early 20s. And of course, going into med school, burning out even more. And I was a huge drinker in my 20s, and I literally studied, drank, and exactly like you said earlier, sleep is the first thing to go. And of course, with all-nighters, when you drink, when you sleep deprived, all you want to do is eat junk food, and then you start that cycle over again. Right. So after I graduated, and I said, what is better than me treating myself like with everybody else out there? So that's how I started my business, really hoping that, high achievers, I think, are, the change makers out there, the people who are making a difference in the world. And we want those people to be healthy. We want those people to be making more money, to be making more impact, so they can make the world a better place.
Yes, I love working with high achievers too. And they're, of course, sometimes hard to coach because they have their own ideas about how things should be. But let's start with a few definitions. So first of all, here's a question I've been meaning to ask someone, but it seems to me like, because you hear the term mental health all the time now, right? But I feel like that term has gotten a little overlap with happiness. Sometimes people say mental health and they just mean, are you happy? Right. Mm-hmm. So is that when people use the term mental health, isn't the technical term is a diagnosable condition, right? Or a something that's wrong with you, maybe hormonally or chemically. But what do you hear the same thing I hear? I just feel like those two terms have gotten merged.
Yeah, I think that's such a great, you know what? Actually, nobody brought that point up to me ever. And I actually did a live the other day and on Instagram. And basically I was talking about how neglected this poor brain is in our head. It's the brain is an organ, but we think is this cloud that's hanging out above our head. And we're like, is this airy fairy thing? Is this mental health, like you said, is this happiness?
Right.
But how nobody knows how to define happiness. People don't even know what happiness is for themselves. But and exactly what you said is the neurochemistry is the physiological component of the brain is what creates mental health essentially. And it really, dopamine, for example, serotonin, all these different neurotransmitters, hormones, like you mentioned, are the foundational pieces to how we think, how we perceive the world, how we choose to, live life, how we perceive what is happy to us.
Yeah.
So, and I totally agree. I think it's the merge between the two personally, as a personal definition for mental health is, of course, there's a diagnostic component to it, but also there is the everyday mental health, just like physical health. If we do have physical health, then it means, we are mobile, we feel really good in our bodies, we're able to digest properly, we can take a nice big poop in the morning every day, hopefully. And and I think when it comes to the brain itself, we forget about the physiological component of it. I hope that answers your question.
I think so. I just, well, anyway, let's get to the topic of today's conversation because I fear I will run out of time with you if I went down this rabbit hole. But today, we said we would talk about burnout. And I just feel like I've been hearing a lot of people talk about burnout. Some of my clients are experiencing burnout. I think maybe I've experienced burnout over the last year, especially like Zoom fatigue and the whole bit. It's just, with the pandemic came just a mushrooming effect of the content that people are putting out onto the internet, the ability to participate in virtual events, webinars, live trainings, blah, blah, blah. And, you have FOMO and it's like, you can just overcommit yourself. So let's start with some definitions. What exactly is meant by burnout?
Burnout is essentially a spectrum. So if you think about, from the stage, essentially, and you've heard of this before, I'm sure, is, when you're afraid, when you're anxious, and when you're excited, they're essentially activating the same neural center, but it's just how we interpret that signal. So when it comes to burnout, when you first start, usually we start by, doing something we're really passionate and excited about. So, let's say, you start a new project, you're like, I'm so excited. There's that honeymoon phase of kind of like where burnout can be a slippery slope. And, we put a lot of work into it. We're excited. We're like, yeah, it's fine if I lose sleep because I'm so passionate about it.
Right.
And then we slowly slide into, the next stage where we feel like, oh my gosh, I am doing so much of one thing, I'm forgetting to do the other things. And I'm sure a lot of people have experienced that, especially high achievers, is when you're so passionate and, helping people, doing, you're running your business, whatever it may be, or doing your job, and you forget to take care of yourself. You forget to eat, you forget to sleep. And then so now you're trying to find that balance between your work or your life or your relationships and other components of things. And then you start going into that, again, that slippery slope. We're going down that spectrum where it becomes a chronic thing. So you're literally just trying to juggle all these things at once. And you start to realize, or people start to realize, that the amount of work, the workload they've been placing on themselves in that honeymoon stage is no longer sustainable. It's just too much, too fast at once, and is not sustainable for the long term. So then now it becomes more of a chronic stress, chronic inflammation in the body, chronic lack of taking care of themselves, and they're essentially just having a really hard time trying to find that balance. And then going down to the next stage usually is that it becomes that initial burnout stage where people are, saying their heads, oh crap, what am I doing? You know, I'm getting fat, I'm getting that muffin top, I can't sleep. And all these physical symptoms start coming out. And that's usually when people start realizing I need to do something about it, because especially as high achievers, a lot of people have tunnel vision. They want to really accomplish that one thing and they have blinders on essentially, and they can't really see a lot of things. And then when they start noticing a lot of the physiological symptoms, that's when finally, that switch goes on and they start realizing I need to do something about it. And then usually if they don't do something about it, because again, high achievers feel like they can do anything, they can conquer the world and things will figure themselves out. They're very adaptable, which is totally true. But then it goes into the last stage of that chronic burnout where people are, constantly tired. They have insomnia. They have, their cortisol curve is off. They can't really control their sleep. And usually, when people drift into that state where they have absolutely no control over their sleep is, they're lying awake in the middle of the night, can't fall back asleep. And then, they're finally able to fall back asleep at 5 a.m, let's say. And then that's usually the time they need to wake back up and go to work again. Right. So that's usually, the tipping point of when people know they need to do something about it, and their stress is getting to the point where it's getting a little too much.
And would you say that's a relatively complete list of the psychological symptoms of burnout? Are there other things people can notice in their behavior patterns or their experience of their work or their life that would be an indicator of burnout?
Totally. So when people are starting to, when they're starting to get into that more of a burnout side of the spectrum is when they want to self-isolate. They don't really want to socialize. They are feeling more, I don't want to say anxious, but a little bit more antsy, because anxiety could be like, a diagnostic thing, but just feeling more antsy. They're feeling a little bit lost, unpleasable, irritable, like when women are going through PMS, but they're just really, really burnt out or they're stressed out. And, of course, there are a lot of mood changes, and mood fluctuations is a huge thing because there's no normal regulation, of the neurotransmitters and all of the chemicals that are going on in the body anymore. And especially as women, because there's so many different hormones at play when it comes to our health. So our hormones usually get out of whack in regards to how the cortisol is changing within the body as well. So mood definitely, how we want to socialize with other people. And when you're feeling down, when you're feeling exhausted, essentially, you don't really want to talk to anybody. You just want to be by yourself and have a glass of wine and just do nothing usually.
Right. Yeah. Check out.
Check out. Exactly. That's the perfect word.
Well, and wine is a thing, right? And I guess it's not, I was going to say, I don't smoke pot. I was going to say, I don't even know, because I'm from California and there are dispensaries everywhere in California. So there's not even a stigma on it anymore, but I don't do it. But let's just say wine and marijuana could be in a category called how to not be present to your life, how to not really think about the reality of your day and your schedule. Because I find that's the hardest thing for me. And maybe I'm jumping ahead and I will come back if you recommend it in the conversation. But the hardest thing for me is when I can stop working, but it never leaves my brain, right? So the question is, how do you, without wine or marijuana, stop yourself from being anxious, right? So do you have tips for that, or what would you say to that?
So usually when I work with my clients, I tell them to compartmentalize, not in a way of, boxing it up and putting it away in their minds, which is what some people recommend, but rather blocking off your time. So one of the biggest things that people as humans we need some sort of routine. We need some sort of anchoring point to our day. So having a schedule where you understand this is my personal care time. So in the morning, every single morning, there's your anchoring point, having a set of rituals, having a set of routines to start your day. And I'm sure you've, had days when you really had to get things done and your routines are all out of whack, where, when you go travel for work or something,
Yeah.
you just feel super frazzled because there's no anchoring point. And as humans, and I always say that, we're trees. We need to water the roots. If we water the branches, it doesn't do anything. The roots will die. So we need to really water the roots. So we need some anchoring points in our day. So whether that's, waking up in the morning, go for a walk, whether that is, I don't know, meditate or do yoga or whatever it may be that really calms you down. So creating that calm environment first thing in the morning is key, and not touching, our phones or computers, whatever it may be, is key, because modern day humans are so stimulated by all of these things. We wake up, we're like, let's get to work right away.
Right.
Rather than doing that, give yourself a little bit of time, allow that, that calmness to kick in, and start the day from a place of calm. And always plan so another thing I recommend is, planning out your year, your month, with money is the same thing, right? Year, month, week, and day. And so the night before, you already know what you're going to do the day after. So you're not going to spend the day saying, oh, I can do a little bit more of this. Oh, I can do a little bit more of this. Because when that list is done, you're done.
Yeah.
And have some sort of, so I usually tell people either as an action or a word for you to either kick yourself into flow state or kick yourself out of your workday. So for some people, they're going to say, I've had a client who's so funny. He was like, my flow state, keyword is bam. And then before he gets into flow state, that can be your anchoring word for you to get out of your workday. So having a set schedule, understand, this is the time that I'm going to stop working. This is the time I'm going to stop booking clients, whatever it may be for people to mark it as the end of their day, then that is the last point or last thing you're going to schedule into your day. And from there onwards, always have a routine for your food schedule, always have a routine for, your night rituals. So having those little anchoring points and insert them into the day for your self-care, to water the roots, not just water the branches.
Okay. So obviously in the morning, most people are and I do my workouts in the morning. So you have your meditation or your workout in the morning, probably your coffee, your breakfast, and maybe you're reviewing your goals or your plan for the day. Then you have your work day. And then what is flow state? Is flow state when you're working, or is flow state when you stop working?
Flow state is when you're working, but flow state is the state when you feel like you're just happy.
That's what I thought. Flow state is when you're in your zone of genius, right? So
exactly.
To speak. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then for folks like me who have young kids, you might now have two phases of the day remaining, right? You have dinner time and bedtime, which is a very selfless time. In fact, you almost have to have your wants and needs be invisible when you have little kids. And for me, it can feel like, well, I just gave 100% and I stopped at 6 p.m. and now I have 2 more hours of selflessness, right? And so it can feel like, oh, I'm digging it. I'm actually giving more than I have to give. And then there's another, because now it's bedtime and there's connecting with my husband, if that's going to happen, right? However that looks. And so it sounds like you do, and I've heard this before, but you recommend a sort of ritual. You said a keyword, I'm not sure what word you used. The BAM, that word.
Yeah. I mean, it can be anything that works for you. And it doesn't even have to be a word. It can be, some sort of, a small ritual. It can be even a body gesture. If you want to just throw your arms up, you're like, I'm done. This is it. I'm going to do whatever I want to do right now.
That's your structural language. I got it. Okay. I like that. I often in the middle of the day, and those of you listening on the podcast won't see this, but if I'm feeling bad or depressed, I turn my palms up, throw my arms out, and I look up and I smile. And it's like, okay, when your body is in that position, you just can't help but be an optimist, right? So, any tips for parents who have these pretty long days where, you can really feel like you have to give a lot at the end of the day, and that's your time to connect with your family? Any tips for parents?
If you were able to, which I think, if you're committed to your own mental and physical health, you can find time slots inside it, like in between your day. So even
Okay.
10 minutes throughout the day. So 10 minutes every 2 hours, 10 minutes every hour, if you can afford it. So, put these little slots in, and it can be, time for you to just sit down by yourself. And I've had one mom, she was, she was telling me right before I, start working with her. And she's like, all I want to do is just sit down in a room by myself, sit there, not have to do anything, just have a sip of water. And I was like, wow, that's not a lot to ask for.
No, that's not a lot to ask.
And, so if that is your thing, you can definitely carve out 5 minutes, lock the door, sit in a room by yourself, 5 minutes, have that cup of tea, have your water, or go out for a walk, and pre-plan those times. And I think a lot of the times, because we're humans we're creatures of habits, and we love consistency, we love predictability. So if you love doing something and getting yourself excited about doing something, is you can pre-plan those little time slots. You can say, tomorrow at noon, let's say, my 10 minutes, I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to go grab, this salad from my favorite place and come back and eat it. Or, the 3 p.m., 10 minutes, I'm going to listen to this 10-minute podcast that I really want to listen to. I've been wanting to listen to for a long time. So planning little things in there that actually get you really fired up, and we're getting you excited and wanting to do something. So it's almost like a little bit of a refuel.
Little fuel up.
Exactly. For the next hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. And just make sure you schedule it in, because a lot of the time, especially as parents, because like you said, you're so selfless, it's very easy to say, well, no, it's okay, I'll just do it next time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Becomes it is a slippery slope at that point, right?
It's like spending on credit cards, right? It's like you can do it for a month, maybe 2, but then it catches up to you.
Exactly.
So is burnout is it a term that's recognized in the industry? Is it a clinically treatable condition, or is it just something that we've colloquialized, kind of put a term to?
I actually never thought about this. I don't think
it's not a diagnosis.
It's not a diagnosis. It is not, it most definitely is not a diagnosis. I think it's something that we have definitely, because I believe, as modern day humans, and this has literally just started happening in the past few years, before the pandemic, of course. But I think, just especially as North Americans, we're constantly working. And I was actually just having a conversation with a friend last night, and he was saying, in Europe, they work and then they go hang out with their friends, in the afternoon. And I'm in Mexico, and everyone works in the morning, the locals, and they go hang out with their friends in the afternoon. And when when we talk about vacation time, the rest of the world has, they're like, you guys only get 3 weeks of vacation if you work a 9 to 5. It is mind blowing for them. Whereas North Americans, we feel like if we're not working, even on vacation, we're failing at life.
Yeah.
And this is something that's, I think it's just so drilled into the North American mind.
Work ethic.
Exactly. But actually Mexico is North America too. So the Canada and America. So, we're constantly working. It's like we're, just a production line of work, basically. And I think, this is something definitely in the past few years has become more and more prevalent and a lot more alarming, especially, like you said, with the pandemic, everybody's at home in the same space. There is that mental fatigue and burnout and increased stress, inflammation, all these different components that are really affecting our mental and physical health.
Yeah. Okay. Tips to feel like, okay, so if you built your business, say 3 to 5 years, and it's just the midnight oil, you've been toiling away, you aged yourself 15 years, you're exhausted, your circadian rhythm is all messed up, you realize it's time to change. And, all the during the day rituals and tips and techniques, those are great. And what would you say to someone who just can't get the work off their mind, or it seems to be like this deep-seated belief, I have to work hard for the money, it has to be me, I can't delegate, right? If I'm not working hard, I can't pay myself a lot, I'll never be financially successful. It's like pushing that boulder uphill. Are there any thoughts about someone who has thoughts that they feel they can't change, beliefs they want to change, but seem to be too deep-seated?
So I always, and the reason why I chose, naturopathic medicine is because I believe everything we do needs to address the root cause of things. And especially exactly like you said, it's really these thoughts that we have carried with ourselves from childhood.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't want to say no human, but I would say 99.9% of the humans out there believe, or subconsciously, consciously think that we're not good enough, we'll never be enough. And that's why we always seek validation. We always want to keep work harder for success. And a lot of the times it's getting to the root of it and really recognizing why, what kind of programming has been done in our minds from a young age, what has happened from a very young age, the type of trauma we've experienced, how those limiting beliefs have really been programmed into our minds from a young age, and how can we reverse that? How can we reprogram it? And to really understand, yes, I can work hard, but I'm not working hard to make sure that I can prove myself to be enough. I'm working hard because, let's say, I want to build a better future for my children, but not from a place of lack, but rather from a place of abundance.
Right. Yeah, I think some of the things that we're talking about, I mean, it seems obvious to a North American, that being me, that to get somewhere, you have to do more of the same things and for longer, right? So it's like this work hard ethic that is ingrained in us. But then it capsizes our health. And as soon as your health is capsized, so is your ability to earn money. Because it's like when you're an entrepreneur, you don't get 4 weeks of paid vacation. I'm paying for that.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Right? So I think we have to set ourselves up to win. How do you do that? Do you, for example, put your vacations in the calendar first? How do you manage your team or the people who work for you? What are some of the things that you do in your life that keep it elegant and nurturing, watering the roots, as you say?
Watering the roots. Yeah. I mean, so my model in life is, I got into this line of work is not because, to make more money. Money is amazing. I want to make as much money as I can. But at the end of the day, I want to serve people. And that's why I got into what I do. So I always say to myself, and I always say to other people, is you have to be selfish to be selfless. If you're not fulfilling your own needs, there's no, it's as cliche as it sounds, you got to fill your own cup first before, you can fill others' cups, which is so true. So, and one thing that I really make sure that I do is I always block off my calendar on a daily basis. I block off at least 3 hours to myself in the morning and in the evening to make sure that I get my own needs filled. Otherwise, I can't show up 100% to my clients. I can't show up 100% to anybody.
Right.
And in terms of vacation, for sure, I usually book off about 4 to 5 weeks a year to make sure that I, fulfill my own needs. And I'm also fulfilling my own needs by moving to Mexico so I can be on the beach every single day.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so it's really understanding what your own needs are, and this applies to food, this applies to habits, or this applies to exercise. So understanding your own physiology, understanding what makes your body happy, what makes your own mind happy, those are the important components. Because I think, and what you said in the very beginning, is that we're bombarded by all the information out there, especially with a pandemic. Everybody's throwing information out of their butts. Who
Oh
knows
my
where they
gosh.
got this information from, right?
I
And
mean, the amount of it is just like, really? I don't even have time to select which videos I want to watch, let alone actually watch them.
exactly, so it becomes very hard for people to be able to filter out the good, like the valuable, and the things that are actually useful versus the fluff that are out there. So, and especially for someone, so for me, obviously, if I want an expert in with money, I'm going to come and see you, and vice versa. So it's not something that I want to try to figure it out myself. So when it comes to finding, what you need to find a really reliable source, I'd say, whether that's money, whether that's your health, whether that's, exercise, whatever it may be. And I think with a lot of high achievers is they try to do everything themselves. They have a really hard time delegating. They have a really hard time, seeking expertise from other people, because they're like, I can figure everything out. And I used to be one of those people. That's why I'm saying that. So, and I
Speaking from
think
personal experience.
always. And I say one of the biggest things that really made a huge difference to me was delegating, not afraid to ask for help, and not feeling, I'm failing in life because I'm hiring a coach, where I'm hiring a financial advisor, I'm hiring someone who's going to manage my money. I think it takes a lot for, especially for high achievers, to really admit that they don't know something. And is that putting the ego down and understanding, okay, actually my ego is actually holding me back. And part of that is sitting down and saying, I just need some time to myself. I can't just work and work and work. And so that's essentially, I think that's the biggest change, I think, for me, is to be able to delegate, to seek expertise, to block off the calendar, and really sit down and understand what do I actually want in life? Because what we've been programmed in life is not what we actually want. My parent, well, of course, I'm Asian, and when I was growing up, my mom said, "Oh, I want you to be a lawyer. I want you to be, a doctor." This and
Lawyer,
that.
doctor,
And
engineer.
exactly. And funny enough, I told her I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. She's like, "Well, why don't you just be a butcher? It's so much easier," and which made no sense.
What?
It was so, she's like, "Oh, you don't have to go through all the schooling. You can just do the same thing, but you just cut animals," which was so bizarre. But that's what I'm trying to say, is that, external dialogues from other people is not always helpful to us. So we need to start, listening to our own intuition and really understand what we want as individuals, and what is it that makes us happy. And I think, when we feel at ease with ourselves, when we feel happy in our own body, that's essentially my definition of success, is you're at peace with yourself, and you don't need any external validation from anybody else.
Well, that's profound. That's profound, especially in a world where almost all of us are building personality brands, right? The seeking of the external validation is it's exciting and it's poisonous at the same time. It's a very profound point you make. So one quick question, and of course it's a big one. I might be opening up a hornet's nest, but before, I just want to ask you how you work with people, because I'm curious, what is the best remedy for burnout so that people can avoid having burnout, make them broke. But should people consider any type of medication or supplementation if they find themselves just in a state of pure burnout, or is the answer to that as individual as the person listening?
Is very individualized. And it, of course, when it comes to medication, it's medication supplementation are, I would say, in the same category of things. Of course, in comparison to the two, supplementation is always better. Medication, take it unless it's absolutely necessary. But what a lot of people tend to do is that they go on the shelf and just takes any supplement. They just start taking it because they saw on some Joe Schmo's website and take omega-3 and you'll be okay. But but every body is different and everybody's situation is different and everyone's nutritional status is different. So it's important for people to start understanding what they need as an individual human, and and understanding what they have been lacking, what they have been having too much of. And I don't usually recommend supplements unless someone absolutely need it, because people think that, supplements is a magic pill. Pharmaceuticals are also considered magic pills, but, people think that, take vitamin B and I'll have more energy. Whereas, a lot of the times the root cause is the type of food they've been putting into the body, is the type of thoughts they've been having, is the type of relationships they're in. It's an ecosystem. We're not just one-dimensional beings. We're constantly interacting with different things. So thinking that, one supplement is going to fix everything I think is rather naive and
simplistic,
a little lazy. I'm really blunt, so I apologize if I offend anybody, but
no, you're on the right show. I'm far blunter than you, so it's all good.
Okay,
anyone who's listening knows me.
I've been holding back. So, but it's almost like bailing water out of a broken boat. If you don't patch up the water, which is your foundational stuff, which is your exercise, eating healthy, breathing clean air, drinking good water, and thinking good thoughts. So, and having some sort of ritual on a daily basis. If people are not patching up those foundational stuff and they're just bailing out the water, thinking that if they take supplements, it'll be a cure-all. If anything, it's just going to balance things out, which I don't even think is going to balance it out, because a lot of the supplements out there have, unfortunately, fillers, which put even more toxins into their body. So I'm always an advocate for, really treating the root cause of things and really understanding what is not working for you, rather than thinking, this magic pill is going to fix everything, which is really tempting to think. But unfortunately, all good things come with a little bit of digging and getting to the root of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it can be hard because for those of us who don't have medical training or know anything about the supplements, it's like, if you read something, it's like, I would like to believe that that's true. But anyway, we're getting off the main topic, which of course is burnout. So thank you for sharing your tips. Just curious, what is the most effective way to work with people? So how do you work with your clients?
Well, I work with my clients, everything's virtual. So everything I do is very much customized other than my group program. So we're very focused on nutrition, very focused on mindset. So building that mindset to make sure that the changes are sustainable, make sure that we are addressing, like what we said before, is that past trauma, the inner child, making sure that, we are reversing the patterns and reprogramming those patterns rather than, trying to build on top of it. So foundational stuff, rituals, habits, exercise, addressing all the foundational stuff. And if, someone is ready for any additional, I don't want to say therapies, but I want to say, any additional help on top of that, supplementation, of course, is one. And also, really trying to again, reprogram their thinking in a way that allows them to continue to keep going. So going from, below baseline to baseline, and then going above that baseline so they can continue to hit, further and further and further in their potential.
Okay, great. And then you have a program that's starting soon for high achievers. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, totally. So I'm all about biohacking, and I don't know if everyone knows what biohacking is. Essentially, is activating, our innate ability and our inborn ability to perform, to heal the body itself, to optimize different habits, nutritional habits, to basically activate the inner power of ourselves. And it sounds so cliche, but it's I think it's something that has not been talked about enough in our modern day society. So little things that, if we tweak it, make a world of difference in terms of our performance, in terms of how we are able to excel at certain areas of our life. So the course itself is essentially about different components of biohacking, including nutrition, habits, exercise, as well as mindset, to give people more energy, having more mental clarity, so they can close their laptops at 5 p.m. and go out and play with their kids, play with their dogs, go on the beach and drink that martini if they want. So it's all about, creating a life people want to live, rather than creating a life that we've been told to live.
Great. How long is the program?
It's a 6-week program. So it's essentially a hybrid between, live sessions and pre-recorded videos where I go through everything, hormones, food, but essentially everything. And there's going to be worksheets, everything done for people, for essentially just for you to brain dump everything onto the paper. So you have a good idea of, what you're going through and what you need to do to get ahead.
Awesome. And when does it start?
January 4th next year.
January 4th, 2022.
Just in time. Yeah.
I always say that because you never know when someone's listening, right?
Yeah, totally.
So, and then how can they get more information about it? And we'll put it in the show notes for today's episode. You can find them at hilaryhendershott.com/195, but tell them the links so that they know.
So the link itself, you can actually find it on my website, deannawrose.com, and you will be able to find the link to the program. And the program's name is Keeping Up with High Achievers, almost like I kind of named it after Keeping Up with the Kardashians. This time is much better is with the High Achievers. And if you want to just, if you want the direct link, it's going to be /Keeping Up with the High Achievers. And you can also find more information on my Instagram it's Instagram at dr.deanna.rose.
Perfect. And I did see, just so everyone listening knows, I did see on her Instagram drinking a glass of white wine. So she takes her own medicine. It was a great
You're
shot.
allowed to drink. You're allowed to drink. Yeah. I'm all about balance, right?
Yeah, that's right. Nobody wants an extremist coach.
No, not at all. I practice preach.
Thank you for joining us here today. We really appreciate you helping us make sure that we're not letting burnout make us broke. I am so glad to have had you on the show. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hilary.